Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
All right, welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. Oh man, we have a lot to talk about. So much is going on, not just on immigration, on the Iran, the memorandum. I mean, you can go on and on and on. It's crazy. But we've got two great guests. We've got Thomas Allen. I know him as Drew Allen. He's going to be joining us. He's got a new book out called Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup. Very interesting. I have not read the book yet. So, yeah, I'm just hoping that we will get something on that. But we also have Jared Knott, and he has a book that's two series part, Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. And, wow, he's a historian, so we're going to follow through on what he's doing there. But like I said, there's a lot to do, a lot to talk about, and oh, Lord.
Where do we begin?
Oh, I don't know. I am Annie Ubelis, and this is my co-host, Hannah Davis of fairus.org. So she's the immigration expert. But what I came across, and you actually pointed out the article too, what hit me is that with what is going on in the House and Senate, we're starting to feel momentum for H.R. 2.
We are.
Now, I know this like the back of your hand. I'm asking you what H.R. 2 is.
Oh, yeah. I think, for our listeners to kind of frame it, because I think, a few years ago, people were talking about H.R. 2, and it passed in the House of Representatives back in May of 2023. And it's just stalled since then. People talk about it, wish that it had passed. But unfortunately, the congressional Democrats blocked it over and over because their goal is to usurp immigration as we know it. But what H.R. 2 does, it basically ensures long-term strategical reforms to immigration law. It makes sure that the pendulum cannot swing every presidential administration that we have. We've seen that a lot, where the last two presidential administrations have been so completely opposite on how they handle immigration. And, we can have our opinions on that, but it'd be nice to have some consistency, not only for the American people, but for the people who work in immigration as well. One term for one president, they're not able to do their jobs, and then the next term they are. And so what H.R. 2 would do is it ends catch and release. That was something we saw a lot under the previous Biden administration, where they would catch an illegal alien at the border or near the border, or even in the interior of the United States. And then they would release that individual and say, okay, we're going to give you a court date for years in advance, and we hope you show up. So H.R. 2 would end that. It also mandates E-Verify, which is a federal system where employers use it to essentially verify whether or not they're actually hiring a legal immigrant or someone that has lawful status and the ability to work legally. On top of it, it reforms asylum processes. So what that means is basically we hear a lot about these frivolous asylum claims, people claiming and filing for asylum when they don't qualify. So it really deters a lot of that. And it also prohibits anybody who is a felon, any migrant who is gang related, or any migrant that's ever had like a drunk driving infraction. They're not allowed to file for asylum. And so it's deterring a lot of bad people from wanting to apply for asylum. And it's also in and of itself deterring fraudulent asylum claims. And then we saw this under the previous administration with Secretary of the DHS Mayorkas. What he would do was create these broad sweeping categories and grant these individuals parole status, which is inherently illegal. It goes against statute. He had to circumnavigate Congress to be able to do that. And so what it does, HR 2 would also limit the DHS secretary's ability to create these broad sweeping humanitarian parole categories. And so it's really bringing, the letter of the law back to where it should have been. And hopefully, if this does pass by, I think, July 4th is when they're supposed to be voting on it. If it does pass, it's going to reform immigration law in such a way that future administrations can't keep swinging between being derelict of duty and then being over the top. It's just, you have to follow the law. It is what it is. And so hopefully HR 2 does get passed. They were talking about it last week when they were debating the reconciliation bill and the reconciliation package, and it got brought up. And what I'm reading is that by 7-4, that there should be a vote on it.
Oh, July 4th, independence from illegal aliens.
I know. Hopefully the vote goes the way that the people want. I think everybody can appreciate some common sense immigration reform, and this is exactly that.
Yeah. All right, well, we can delve into this a little bit later on, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to remind everyone every show starts off with dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going to Deputy Sheriff Richard Coyle of the Crittenden County Sheriff's Office in Kentucky. His end of watch was Thursday, April 30th of this year, and this is the dedication.
And we have an update to a story we brought you earlier this week. Crittenden County Deputy Sheriff Rick Coyle continues to fight for his life after being shot in the line of duty. As Coyle continues to recover, the Western Kentucky community came together to pray for his recovery Friday. Barbara Bellinger has that story.
The town of Marion, Kentucky is the county seat of Crittenden County. It's about 10 minutes away from the shooting that left one person dead, a sheriff's deputy in the hospital, and a community praying for a miracle.
We learned of the news and we were shocked by it, and so we immediately started praying for him. Rick is a pivotal part to our community. He's such a nice man. He'd be the first person to give you the shirt off his back.
Briley Conyers' father works with the injured officer, Deputy Rick Coyle, at Crittenden County High School.
My dad would talk about Rick, how he came from Chicago working with SWAT, and so he kind of came here to kind of wind down and retire, and that he really loved having him at the school. He's a really good man, and it's just a bad situation that he comes here to live a quiet life in this small town, and an incident like this occurs.
At a prayer vigil, which was quickly organized by community members, the bleachers at the high school football field were packed. Law enforcement vehicles from across the region lined the track with their silent blue lights flashing.
We're all coming together as a community to pray. He's a very important part of this community, not only as an SRO, as also a deputy.
We should always be in prayer, not just at this time, but especially at this time. Our faith is everything.
Conyers says it's in tough times like these when this small Kentucky community really shows up to support each other.
I love our small town. Our community is so great. I'm so glad that we all come together in times like these, and I just really appreciate our small town.
Following the incident, Coyle was taken to a hospital in Evansville, Indiana for treatment. His family and his work partner are with him at the hospital.
New at noon, a Heartland Sheriff's deputy shot nearly a month ago has died from those injuries. The Crittenden County Sheriff's Office announced this morning Deputy Rick Coyle passed away at his home this morning. Deputy Coyle was shot during an exchange of gunfire with a suspect back on April 2nd in Sturgis, Kentucky. He and other officers were there to serve emergency guardianship paperwork. Coyle was the school resource officer for the Crittenden County Sheriff's Office. Before that, he worked for the Chicago Police Department for 28 years. Authorities say funeral arrangements will be announced once the plans are finalized.
A community is grieving tonight after the passing of Crittenden County Sheriff's Deputy Rick Coyle. Coyle passed this morning at his home surrounded by family. He was shot in the line of duty earlier this month. Here's video from the scene courtesy of the Crittenden Press. According to Kentucky State Police, Coyle was shot while attempting to serve emergency guardianship paperwork at a home. He was airlifted to the hospital in critical condition. Local 6's Ariana Allen spoke with a few people today about it. Ariana, how's the community today?
Well, Todd, flags were flying at half-staff in Crittenden County in honor of Deputy Rick Coyle. While I wasn't able to speak to anyone on camera today, I know from conversations and past stories we've done how much Coyle truly meant to this community. A community in mourning and flags flying at half-staff, all in memory of Crittenden County Sheriff's Deputy Rick Coyle. Since the incident that left Coyle hospitalized, this community has been by his and his family's side. We spoke with Crittenden County school students in early April as they honored their beloved SRO. Here is how they described him.
There was not a time during school that I ever felt unsafe with him being here.
Officer Rick is definitely one of the nicest and caring people I've ever met. He was always just trying to be there for the staff and the children in any way he could, whether that be at the school or ball games.
I would tell him thank you for his hard work, his dedication to our school, his dedication for caring about the well-being of all of our students. He was someone that did not like special recognition, but I would just love for him to know the army he has behind him and how missed and loved he is.
Today, the sheriff's office making this post to Facebook addressing their community after this loss. In it, they share that Coyle passed at home surrounded by his family. They go on to say he was a beloved member of the sheriff's office, and at this time, they're asking that the community continue to respect the privacy of Deputy Coyle's family. We told you a few weeks ago about these bracelets being sold for the family. The nonprofit Operation Giving Trees say they're still for sale at $5 each. Todd.
Ariana, thank you. Crittenden County Schools says grief counselors are on standby for students and staff that need someone to talk to. Meanwhile, Deputy Coyle's death getting reaction from leaders statewide.
This morning, we also got the tough news that we had lost Crittenden County Sheriff's Deputy Rick Coyle, who succumbed to his injuries after being shot in the line of duty in early April. Deputy Coyle sacrificed everything to protect our Commonwealth, and we are forever grateful to him. Please join Brittany and me as we pray for the families of these incredible Kentuckians during this tough time.
Deputy Coyle's funeral arrangements are still incomplete. We'll pass those along when we get them.
Oh, there we go.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, Father, Mother, our time has come. We gave them hope. We made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah. We led with grace. Sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other, oh, for the soul of the nation, for oh, the next generation.
Yep. There we go. Hey, I started off the show fine. If everything else, I'm going to screw up. And he's at it again. Keep her away from the keyboard.
It is what it is. We're here, though.
Well, in fairus.org, you have a news and opinion section as well as legislation. And people can find a lot of these articles by going to fairus.org on it. And what we were just talking about is titled Reconciliation Bill Would Ensure Immigration Enforcement, which is an excellent, excellent article. And just so that people know, was it 4 years ago? Was that when we went going across the...
back in 23, I believe, right?
No, I got married in 23. So
Okay.
4 years
Well,
ago.
it passed the House back in 23. So we were probably, urging the House to pass it. It was probably, 22.
Yeah, we were going from one side of the mall in Washington, D.C. to the other, walking.
Yeah.
And knocking on doors of senators and representatives and their staff. And we were talking about HR too. And I think that was pivotal in getting it through the House, which is we got to turn over seats in the Senate so we can get this advanced. So this is why this midterm election is so very important.
Yes.
Now, here, I came across an article, and again, this is unfair, about immigration. Who are the real extremists? And I thought that was amusing because, we as conservatives we're called all different types of names. Right-wing extremists, nationalist Christians, or Christian nationalists, however they go.
Xenophobic.
Yeah. What was the other one I was just thinking of? Nazis. Yeah.
Fascist.
Yeah. And now, wait a minute. Doesn't Maine have a Nazi fascist running for Susan Collins' seat?
Yeah.
So, we start to turn around and look to see exactly where we're coming from. And we're looking to have the debate. I may not agree with you. I may not like what you're saying, but that's what free speech is about. And I will defend your right of free speech.
Yeah.
According to the Constitution. It's for you, me, for everyone. It's like, I may not like what you're doing, but hey, it's your choice.
Yeah.
So, that's why I found this article so very, very amusing. And, you stop and look at it, then which political party sides with Antifa? Yeah, wait a minute. Didn't they just arrest a bunch of people that were associated with Antifa recently?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. We're called all these things. And I mean, we've all probably been called worse, but especially the fascist take. When we're called fascist for, like, particularly people who I work with, or FAIR as a whole is considered by the left or by the SPLC, even though their credibility is
they got charged.
Yeah, SPLC's credibility is long gone down the drain. But I see that word a lot, like fascist is thrown out there so casually, as if we've just forgotten what true fascism looked like in the 40s under the Third Reich, and it just really baffles me when they just throw these words out there and hoping they'll land. It's just manufactured outrage. These extremists get together and they protest together for this commonality they have, and they share all of this really divisive language, and they just peddle it at us. But people, they need to open up a book and dive into history that's unfortunately very recent history, and see what true xenophobia, what true fascism looks like, what a true authoritarian regime is. Because right now that's not what we have. The fact that they're even able to legally refer to a political opponent as a fascist proves that they're not under a fascist regime, because a fascist regime would never allow this kind of divisiveness, would never allow freedom of speech. All the private companies would be controlled by the state. I mean, it's actually painfully ironic. We have these words thrown around, but it's a contradiction in and of themselves.
Because there's something I remember from my childhood, and my father served in the U.S. Army as occupying troops in Germany after the war. And ironically there, when he found he was going to be shipped out over there, he bought a copy of Mein Kampf. And years later, my brother found it on the bookshelf, and he started calling my father all those nasty names. He goes, no, you don't understand. I wanted to read this so I knew who my enemy was.
Yeah. It's like having a copy of the Quran and assuming that you must be a practicing Muslim. No, people read books that are written.
My copy's right back here. I got it. And
an
Italian Roman Catholic read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
I had to think to her a few things. She's going to turn 94 in 2 weeks. So, and she read it and understood it. And that's to know who your enemy is, you must know what they write and say.
Yeah.
What they intend. Not what actually they're telling everyone else, but what is their true intent. Like we're dealing with Iran right now. We're facing a lot of tequila. And Trump knows that, so he said any benchmark is based upon your performance.
Yeah. Yeah, people want to ban books or shy away from the opposing party's doctrines, but no, the best way to understand them is to actually read where they're coming from. You might gain some guidance along the way. You might end up agreeing along the way. The only way you're able to ever form an opinion on the plethora of opinions that a humankind can agree or disagree with is to read. That's how you develop. That's how you become a better reader, is by reading, and that's how you become smarter, is by reading. And so it also, I mean, you have to read the other side's opinions. So,
so it can't be just like where's my phone? There it is, somewhere around the way. Got the phone up. No one sees it, but it's like 20 characters or less. If you don't understand it in those 20 characters, then it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Not everything can be a Twitter status. You've got to actually be able to read something. And Mein Kampf, that's a heavy read. So, but yeah, like going back to your initial point, and people are not afraid to call someone that they don't agree with either racist or fascist or xenophobic. And I just think the ability and the freedom, if you will, to even be able to refer to a political opponent as any of those things kind of highlights the fact that we're not under a fascist regime. Because like I said earlier, a fascist regime would never allow for groupthink of any type. You're either going to agree with the state or you're not. And so we're obviously not under a fascist regime. I have a report coming out actually on debunking the myth that immigration, being pro-immigration or being pro-closed border, doesn't make you inherently a fascist. There's history to that term, and there's a sick, dark, twisted history to that term, and there's very specific components of fascism that you must adhere to actually be a fascist. And calling a political opponent a fascist is I don't know. It's a cheap shot now. It used to be you would refer to everybody as racist, right? That's what we would get in the immigration camp a lot. Oh, you must be racist, that kind of thing. But now, they're graduating to PTSD, PST words or whatever, PSAT words. That's what it is. They're graduating in their vocabulary. And so now they're using fascism and xenophobic. I'm curious to see what the next one will be, but you know,
All right. Well, let's bring our first victim of the day up on the screen here. Well, welcome aboard, Jarrett Knott. Now, wait a minute. What happened to him?
Where'd he go?
I know. I got a blank screen. What happened here? No, I see him down there.
And at some point, we've got to talk about what's going down in South Carolina regarding immigration. That's interesting. What's going on?
I caught that today. He must have stepped away from his desk because I see the screen is frozen on his end.
Yeah, it is.
Hopefully
maybe he'll refresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, about 3.5 hours from you. You ever been to Abbeville?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's going towards Greenville. They had a manufacturing plant. They were making like copper and brass and nickel, stuff like that, and applying the metals to different other materials. I don't know. Manufacturing plant. And they got busted. They got raided, and they had 48 illegal aliens working there. And it's a huge scheme, Annie. Like, there's been criminal charges for the people who were paying them under the table, for the people who were employing them illegally. So, and it's, in a small town like Abbeville, South Carolina, especially like any southern town, one manufacturing plant can make or break the economy there. And so the fact that they were hiring illegal aliens.
He has a face.
He does.
He's checking to make sure he does. Welcome aboard to Jarrett. Good afternoon, Jarrett. How are you?
Good. It's been a very interesting discussion I was listening to. Okay.
Yeah, she was telling me in my own state here. I live in South Carolina, little tiny town up country. We call it upstate up country, Abbeville. We just had how many were arrested in this?
48 illegal aliens were working there, and then the people who have employed them they've been facing charges as well.
Yes. I mean, it's a little tiny town. You think you're not going to see it, but yes, it's in our backyard, and that's people can't really accept. Oh, but you're taking away their jobs. But how many Americans more would be employed in those jobs if you did not give them at a lower wage and treat them almost like they're serfs? Maybe they can get better jobs speaking here legally. I mean, this is so many things.
Yeah.
My mind's going to explode right now.
The whole issue, I'll jump in here, of illegal immigration, of course, includes MS-13. It includes the Latin Kings. It includes Trinidad, Nicaragua. It includes huge amounts of illegal drugs coming across the border. 3-4 years ago, it was like 102,000 people died from drug overdoses, primarily fentanyl, but also cocaine and the others. So doing massive damage to the United States. Apartment buildings being taken over out there in Colorado. All these a lot of crimes being committed. All these horrible murders taking place. So that's issue enough, reason enough to have a closed border. And then on top of that, it has the secondary things about jobs being taken away from Americans. But legal immigration is a very good thing. It can be very, very positive. We need a lot of the talents of people in the engineering field. We also need the talent of people in construction, et cetera. So handled correctly, it can be a very positive thing.
Yeah, it can be. I may be joking around, but seriously, it's something that really sticks home to me. Because I'm only second generation American, and 3 out of my 4 grandparents came here illegally. One fleeing Germany, his father was kind enough to bring him over before they went fascist, dropped him in an orphanage and disappeared. And when he was old enough, he took his younger brother and made a life for themselves in Brooklyn, New York. Mm-hmm. My mother's father was actually escaped Italy because Mussolini made him a target. He was the first target. And he came here to live. And he interacted with the local mafia in New Jersey, and they left him alone. Because he was a man, great influence, even though no one was picking the crowd. And my grandmother came here as a tourist, and when the war broke out, World War I, she got stuck. Fell in love with my grandfather, and that was it. But, we came here legally. One husband came through Ellis Island for me. That was my second one. My current husband was brought here from Cuba and did the lifting of the children. So, I live this every single day. So when I see someone abusing the system and how much trouble they had to go through back then, the hoops they had to go through. Immigration law under Biden and Obama just, lax. Oh, Biden was, forget about it. We didn't have any immigration laws. Forget about that. But also, when I end up being called to a radio run, I would see someone that needs help to the hospital. And if they're here illegally, when you got to the hospital to help them check in, they had 5 different Medicaid cards with 5 different names. And it's like, I asked one guy, why do you have 5 different ones? He goes, oh, I'm holding them for my cousin.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. So it is in our very fabric of our society. And you mentioned, coming from Mexico, South America, Latin America. But what we're not talking about is all the other countries that also make up a huge section of that. People of Middle Eastern descent, people from India, people from China, people from Russia. And there was an article I read, and I still can't find it. It was about 1988 or 89, and I would have sworn it was Newsweek. It said OTM. And I'm sitting there waiting for my husband to come back from the doctor, and I started reading the article. What the heck is an OTM other than Mexican? And they were finding at the southern border Qurans and prayer shawls being left in the desert so they can blend in with society. Signs being printed in Chinese so they can be guided. And this was in the 80s and 90s. And we didn't do much about it. And now we're stuck with the consequences of it today.
Well said.
Yes. If you said that all laws must be tightly enforced in all circumstances, I'm not sure that's a good thing. One tiny example, way back when, General Pershing, when he's applying for West Point, was 1 year too old, and he lied about his age. He said he was 25, really he was 26, well, he got admitted, but on to become one of our greatest generals. In fact, some historians say that we would not have won World War I without the leadership of General Pershing. Well, so if we had observed the laws very carefully, very strictly, we would have lost our best general. Also, too, my mother told my father that she was 1 year younger than she really was. She said that she was born in, I guess it was going to be, I said she was born like 1916. We actually born in she said she was born in 1913, she was born in 1912. So she's 1 year older than my dad. My dad died not knowing that she was actually 1 year older. Well, maybe that would have made a difference. Maybe I wouldn't be here. That's when was too old for me. So strict enforcement can be necessarily a good thing.
Also an exception to the rule depending upon what circumstances individuals came here by, whether or not they were trafficked. And so there's a lot of things that will also help that individual, even if they came here illegally. And so we have to look at the whole picture. But sometimes, like this one guy that they arrested from India, he was wanted on terrorist charges. He wanted to throw grenades at the police station. He snuck here through Mexico and was here illegally. There's another one that was just busted also recently, and I don't remember if it was California or not. They call him Don because his name is so big long. That he also was a leader of several different terrorist groups. Oh, he was from Brazil. That's where he was from. And he fled Brazil, but now he was here. And Lord knows what he was. He wanted to do more hand grenades. He was wanting to attack the public, and he was a terrorist. And here they are working in our community, probably passing in the grocery store. You don't know. And you question just how safe are the streets of America if we don't know who's walking them. So anyway, I got to mention a book that you've got talking about great blunders, Obama and a Biden. You've got, it's a 2-part book series, Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. You have it book 1 and 2. So what's going on with that?
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him again.
Yeah. You make up a good point though about the crime. I mean, people can't even go on runs or walks without being scared. Moms don't want to go to Walmarts now without, their spouses because of being scared, and adding a criminal element of illegal immigration to that mix is never going to be good.
No. But if Jared can hear, your screen is freezing up on you. You're like a still photo.
Okay. Yeah, you blanked out. I can see you and hear you now. Can you see and hear me or not?
Yeah, we
can hear and see you. Tell us about your book.
Yes, I have 2 books, Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters, basically book 1 and book 2. I didn't know that when I wrote book 1, there was going to be a book 2, but I'm blessed to say it's sold extremely well, 36,000 copies and counting. And now altogether, the 2 books together sold 41,000. And so it's a kind of base. People saying, why did you think of this idea for this particular book? But it goes back to the old adage coming from Benjamin Franklin that for one of the nail, the shoe was lost. For one of the shoe, the rider was lost. For one of the rider, the battle was lost. For one of the battle, the empire was lost. The empire was lost, all for the want of a simple nail. But that's a nice old saying. But how often does it really happen that a single tiny mistake causes empires to collapse? You'll be amazed in the book, both of the books, how example after example of a single tiny small mistake sets off a chain reaction and leads to the Titanic sinking, leads to the Vietnam War being lost, leads to the Roman Empire collapsing at the very end. Somebody forgot to lock a gate in the fortress wall. And example after example, the soldier kicks a helmet off of a wall, sets off a chain of events, which leads to the empire collapsing, et cetera, et cetera. So example after example of a single tiny mistake leading to huge disaster. It's like the butterfly effect in human history. Right.
It's like a historical take on the butterfly effect. Do you have a favorite one that you included in your book?
Yeah, well, let me follow through on that, which is kind of a favorite one. This a Professor Lorenz years ago, way back in the 1950s. He was a leading mathematician. They do not give a Pulitzer Prize, they give a Nobel Prize for mathematics, but if they did, he would certainly have won it. Anyway, he was analyzing this weather program, and back then it took the computers of the day a long time to run the computer programs. And he had a number with a decimal and then 18 numbers behind it, and potentially little tiny and infinitesimally small numbers. Gee, it was taking so long for the computer to run this number. Let me whack off just 6 of the numbers at the very end. It won't make any difference. When he runs the computer, and he's amazed at what a dramatic difference it made in the end. It's somewhat analogous, not exactly the same, but somewhat analogous going from Seattle, Washington to London, and your compass is off by 1 degree, and you end up in North Africa or something like this. Something along those lines. Anyway, he made this big presentation, this mathematical convention, and he said, this means that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil can set off a chain reaction which can lead to a cyclone in Texas a year and a half later. That was the birth of the idea of the butterfly effect, which of course is exactly what we're talking about. And I'll tell you, the very first idea I had for this book, I had this as the teaser. A single piece of tape rotated several inches the wrong direction changed the outcome of the Vietnam War. The United States might very well have won, except for this single tiny mistake, which doesn't make any sense. That we're talking about a piece of tape. Well, it has to do with the Watergate break-in. It was James McCord and the Cuban operatives were told when to jimmy the door from the parking garage into the office building to hold the striker on the door down with a single piece of tape in the vertical position. But they made a mistake and they put the piece of tape across the horizontal position. And so when Frank Wills, night watching, is walking down the hallway, wait a minute, went tape on the door, and I realized the door's been Jimmy calls the Washington, D.C. police. There's a strong rumor that the uniformed officer on duty that night in that part of the city was intoxicated in a local bar and could not answer the call. So they had to send the bum patrol, 3 officers dressed as hobos in a jalopy car, to answer the call instead. When they came to the Watergate complex, they were not recognized as police officers. They look at it, doesn't signal them that we got trouble here, so they come in, they arrest James McCord, and the Cuban operatives, and Watergate begins, boom, boom, boom. Henry Kissinger gave an interview back during that period, and he said that they knew the North Vietnamese were going to be violating the treaty that had just been signed. The plan was, when they did that, to go in there and bomb the living daylights out of them again to get them back in compliance, but they were so weak politically because of Watergate they couldn't. South Vietnam collapses, Nixon administration collapses, it all falls apart because of a single piece of tape rotated several inches the wrong direction and a drunk cop.
I'm being of the generation where I remember Kennedy said he was sending the men in as a police action. As not a police action. Kennedy said they're sending them in as advisors. And then when Johnson came in, he said, no, this is just a police action. So it's never declared an act of war according to what the Constitution requires.
There was not. No.
There was none. And it drives me absolutely nuts when they say that this war or that war is the longest war the United States has ever been in. That's incorrect, because we are in a perpetual war with North Korea. We never signed a peace treaty. So we are still at war with North Korea since the 1950s. And my uncle, my mother's brother, served in a MASH unit over there. we were watching the TV series Match. We kept on saying, Uncle Felix, is that what happened to you? So,
I think it's all a truce, but it was never a peace agreement. It was never really signed, finalized. Also, by the way, our war with the Seminole Indians in Florida was never finalized with these three. They got expensive, so they just pulled the troops out and just kind of faded away. So it just never came to an end after all. But,
no. There's so much here to discuss with you, and I've got like half a sheet of handwritten notes. But we're all looking at what's going on with this memorandum that Trump had signed with Iran. And we were discussing earlier the Quran and a couple of other things, which I have a copy behind me that I read. And, Iran, you do not expect them to adhere to any single item in that memorandum. So why is it thinking that we're in the middle of a ceasefire when they've already broken it just today? Oh, the dog is answering. Oh, is there a dog?
No, not my dog. I think he's frozen again.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
it was a good question, though. I can't answer it.
It's really because.
Well, the only thing they understand one thing. They understand brute force. They understand strength and force. They understand bombing, getting blown up, and they understand the military going in there to enforce an agreement. Based on their honor, or the fact that they've signed an agreement means exactly nothing. In fact, it probably means that they're not going to do it if they say they are. Completely corrupt, completely evil. They kill 45,000 of their own people, machine gunned down in the streets. They capture a lot of the people. They torture them to death. They remove their eyes, and they kill them in the most horrible circumstances. Their hands are just dipped in blood. They're the most evil people on earth. And plus, worse than that, I got to be worse than that. They're irrational. Not only are they evil, China, leader of China, or evil. So is North Korea. So is Putin. But they're all rational. The people there in Iran think that when they die, they're going to go to heaven and in a mansion with 47, 42, 70, I'm not sure what the number is, virgins, and that they almost want to die. And they're fanatical cause. So you're dealing with people on the other side of the table that are not rational, reasonable, normal people. That's what makes it very, very difficult. And again, then you just beat the hell out of them with the bombing and with the war campaign.
Yeah, because if you're not born as a Muslim, even if you're converted, you're not even considered full Muslim. But if you're not a Muslim, you are an infidel. You are to be utilized as a servant, as a slave, as anything else. And this is something that Europe learned about with the first invasion of the Moors, that went as far as north end of Russia, took over a large part of England. Hence, when you see certain plays written by Shakespeare involving wars in it. Cervantes, in his book, also described how he was a slave. He was captured as he was doing a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and he was held as a slave by a Muslim woman. He was able to get freedom, and he wrote the book, The Man of the Puncher. But these people were already predicting this is what's going to happen if we allow this to continue. Hence came the Crusades. And I'm thinking back to everything I've learned and read. I'm saying we're going to be entering another crusade, a second crusade. What's your thought?
Well, I think Donald Trump, in a way, I hate to say it, kind of folded his hand. He's looking to bring an end to the situation in the Middle East. We got the Strait of Hormuz open, hopefully. That's going to happen. And also, keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We accomplish those two things, and he's ready to he's going to keep the troops there in the region for a long time. But if we can reach that resting point, or this kind of stabilization point, he's ready to go home, so to speak. Now, after the November election, okay, will he come back in November, December, January of this year, or January next year, and be more aggressive in the future? But right now, with the economy and with the price of oil and that sort of thing, he's looking for a way out. And they said we did not get the full loaf of bread that we wanted. We may have gotten half a loaf or 40% of a loaf. And hopefully they can bring it to a kind of stabilized end. And we can go on with the economic activities and lower price of oil and a peaceful, happy life. That's what we hope.
That we can hope. I mean, as I'm looking at everything that I know from history, And the worst blunder we ever make is when we allow history to repeat itself, which is why historians are so important to point that problem out to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I mentioned there's the two wars in the last 60 years we could have avoided. We could have avoided the war in Vietnam. It's the war that I was in. I don't think it was necessary. I think we could have avoided the war in Iraq. In both cases, we had a Texan who was president of the United States. There's something about we Texans. I'm very proud to be from Texas, but something about we Texans and more. Okay, San Jacinto, the Alamo, and so on and so forth. We have kind of an attitude about, and Lyndon Johnson, famous conversation he had with Robert McNamara, who is the Secretary of War at the time, and he said, "Bob, I want you to have somebody talking about Vietnam. I want to have somebody put some plans together talking about Vietnam. Go over there, whoop the hell out of them." Okay, there's a tape recording who gave me that direction to his Secretary of War. Okay, yes, sir, I will. Okay, so off we went. Well, we could have skipped the whole thing, and I don't think that we'd been better off. Iraq, we could have skipped the whole thing. We would have been better off. We can't say that with Iran. Okay, they cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. We have irrational people. And then the Chinese could have sold them a nuclear weapon a long time ago. The North Koreans could have sold them a nuclear weapon. But why didn't they? I mean, they're not friends of the United States. Why didn't they? Well, because they know the Iranians would actually use it. They would actually use it against Tel Aviv. They would actually use it against Jerusalem. They'd actually blow up Israel. And what would Israel do? They'd blow up the Tel Aviv, Tehran, and we'd have a nuclear war in the Middle East. And of course, the Iranians might use nuclear weapons on their neighbors. Okay, and by the way, their missiles can reach Rome, they can reach Paris, they can reach London. These unrational, irrational people, evil people, human life means nothing to them. They'll tell you what they might do with nuclear weapons. So they cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon regardless, no matter what. That's a number one priority. And then number two, we have to have the Strait of Hormuz open. You dirty people, you don't have the right to try to close down an international waterway. Those basic objectives have to be accomplished. And whatever it takes to do it, we have to do.
You know, what I find amazing that no one is also paying attention to. Under Islam, I'm not even going to call it religion. It's a geopolitical belief in my eyes. The dates are important because they attacked us in 9/11. And in 2012, our embassy is attacked in Benghazi. There was an attempt attack on the embassy that same day in Cairo. And we're not paying attention. We've got the 25th anniversary of 9/11 coming up, and that's scaring the Jesus out of me.
Yes, well, of course, they just had the big plot. They had a number of people going to attack the meeting there at the White House. One of the was an illegal alien from Mexico. And you make a very good point that we've had all kinds of people coming to the United States. We don't know who they are, or where they're from, or what their intent is. We know that we have a lot of criminals, MS-13, Nicaragua, Latin Kings, and a lot of the Chinese coming over with suitcases. Okay, I guess maybe Chinese agents. And we have other people that have imported to the country, and we have all kinds of potential danger from that. And you make another very good point. We had a narrow for a parent turning in the plot. It could be this plot of the attack on the White House lawn. That celebration could have led with 2 dozen people being killed. So we had a close call there. What else is I can promise you that there are people trying to plan some kind of attack and disruption for the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. That is out there right now. The FBI, I'm sure, is pursuing it very aggressively. Pray to gosh they intercept any kind of plots that are underway, and we just have to pray and hope for the best.
Yeah.
There's another point that people either they're ignoring it, but a lot of these gangs that are coming over the border have assistance from China and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go in Iran, go down in South America, basically a no man's land, and they rule that whole area. A lot of the chemicals are for fentanyl and methamphetamine, and methamphetamine is now the drug of choice as of today. That's being manufactured with the assistance of the Chinese. They say, here's all the stuff you need, sneak it across the border, set it up, because each item on its own is not a hazard. But when you go to the lab, combine them, that's where the hazard comes.
I think we used to think of war with China as some kind of boots on the ground situation, but between them destroying us from within, whether it be soft attacks on our grid or them manufacturing the precursor chemicals that they give to the Mexican cartels, they've got it handled from afar. It'll be a cyber war that'll take us down if they continue going down this path that they're doing.
Don't forget their ability now to infiltrate our corporations, our colleges,
or the birth tourism industry that China clings to.
Birth tourism. There's so many subtle ways that they have already done it. And in New York City, when I was there working, it's like you were told this area of Chinatown is controlled by the Chinese police. They had a police station in Chinatown, and they actually controlled the population. When Hillary Clinton was running for Senate the first time, she was getting a lot of her donations from Chinatown in New York City.
I believe
now,
it.
I'm sorry, I'm very familiar with the streets, having walked them. I don't know if Jared knows that I retired out of NYPD. That's why I know this. It is amazing how the people in Chinatown actually had to report to the police their behavior, who their relatives are. And the donations, these people didn't have the money. It was being funneled through them to go into her campaign. And I believe there was a gentleman that went to jail for fundraising for her of Chinese descent. I'm being polite. But we're not paying attention to what his history already taught us, are we? Yeah.
Well, I would say it is scary. Now, if you roll back the clock 2 or 3 years ago, it was a very, very scary situation. You had the Biden administration participating in bringing in millions of people from primarily Latin America. Why were they doing that? Well, they wanted to shift the demographics for the House of Representatives. Under the law, illegals could be counted as a part of the population, determining which state got a certain number of representatives. Plus, also, as we know, many of them voted illegally and are still voting illegally. The polls, the voter lists are very dirty there in California. So they were for New York, for New Jersey, for Massachusetts, flooded a lot of illegals. California flooded a lot of illegals. That counts towards the balancing out how many representatives those states get. Also, they can vote illegally. And never mind, you got tens of thousands of people dying from fentanyl overdoses. Never mind all the crimes taking place. Never mind all the criminals coming in, taking over apartment buildings in Colorado and everything else that they're doing. We want to get political power. The American people become a distant second in our priorities. So that's what was going on. I will say, excuse me for being optimistic, hopefully not naive, not naive, but optimistic. Now under Kash Patel, now under our CIA director and Donald Trump, we are moving in the right direction, and we're dealing with a massive fraud. By the way, that's a whole other issue there. California and Minnesota, a huge amount of billions of dollars that are being just stolen outright. Governors being warned about it, they're being told about it, and people are called racist and xenophobes for having said anything about it. And finally, it blows up, and now they're trying to pretend like they were pursuing it all along. Big, ugly, nasty scandal there. Stealing and robbing us blind, plus also bringing criminals into our country, and never mind all the people dying of the attacks and dying of fentanyl. Big, ugly mess. But I want to say and pray that we are now heading in the right direction in dealing with those problems, I hope.
I appreciate the optimism, Jared. I think we need it in times like this. I also want to just briefly mention how good are the left, how good are the Californian elites at warping the narrative, because they've got these protesters out there on the streets thinking that they're allowing millions of illegal aliens into the United States for humanitarian reasons, right? Because no one's allowed on stolen, no one's illegal on stolen land or whatever they tout off. But at the end of the day, you're right, Jared, that it's just to control the elections. It's to sway demographics. It's to sway statistics. While these same people they've got peddling their beliefs in during these protests are the ones paying the bill, because you brought in all these millions of illegal aliens to these sanctuary jurisdictions, and who's footing that bill? The taxpayers. And so they're lying to everyone. They're lying to the people they even voted for. And I always like to remind people that California is the same state where a woman was successfully able to register her dog to vote. So yes, illegal aliens are voting in our elections, especially out there.
Dog vote.
You know how the dog voted.
Sure. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Roof. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's a disaster. And of course, George Soros and others are pouring millions of dollars in, paying people literally to go out and protest. And I guess ICE primarily are the local police when they're trying to quell the riots. But I'm a big believer going down to the basic facts in the situation. If you have people inside the ICE facility charged with homicide, charged with rape of a child, charged with being dealing drugs and bringing poisonous, dangerous drugs into the country. You have these dangerous criminals. What are you supposed to do with them? And their ridiculous position is whether they should just be released on the streets and the sidewalks, and so they start committing the crimes, they can rape more children, murder more people, kill more people with drugs. It doesn't come to a logical conclusion when you take it down to the basics. Of course, people guilty of serious crimes have to be charged. They're leaving back on the streets, they commit more terrible crimes. And then paralleling that, we have judges, I guess, with a very woke attitude. You see somebody who's guilty of murder. Turns out he was a recent case here in Georgia. He had been convicted of murder and was downgraded to manslaughter. He served just 9 months for the crime of murder. And surprise, surprise, goes back on the streets. He commits another murder. And example after example, you have people committing these terrible crimes, and they created a long series of those crimes. The previous 6 months, previous 2 years, previous 3 years, and so on like that. And the judges are just far too lenient in allowing criminals and not protecting the American people the way they should.
Yeah, they're Biden appointees. What do you expect? They're going to be soft on crime, woke justice, revolving door of justice, Soros-funded backdoor deals. It's dirty.
It was this year. I interrupted. Sorry, I apologize. But there was that one judge, a note of optimism, who let the illegal out the back door, was convicted recently. She was convicted.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they're going to give her 2 days in jail or a year in jail. I don't know what it was, but that's a ray of hope. I
think if you're a judge who's been convicted of a crime while being a sitting judge, you should just be, what is the word? Disbarred? I don't know.
Well, and maybe spend a little time in the slammer. A little time.
Yeah, that too. There we go.
Maybe 30 days or 60 days, and then be disbarred and everything else. Yes. Right.
Well, listen, I want to change the subject just a little bit because I came across an article from Primus. I love Hillsdale. There was thinking about our American Revolution. I mean, in 2 weeks, it's going to be July 4th. And having been someone who graduated at the 200th anniversary, it hits home for me. And being, like I said, only second generation American is something I really deeply appreciate. And, I'm not a student of history, but when something hits me, I'm going to look and delve into it. Hence, I got the Federalists behind me. I've got the husband and wife team Broadus that wrote the birth of a Constitution back in the 1950s behind me, which is very interesting. But we look at Ezekiel Niles on February 13th of 1818 said that the revolution took place in the minds and hearts of the people. It was a radical change in the principles, opinions, statements, and affection of the people. He added, it was the real American Revolution. Can we hold on to our original founding fathers' ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee, the pursuit of happiness? Because we're talking about illegal voting in our elections, and we have people fighting not to let the SAVE Act be put into law, but yet in Article 19 of the Constitution, there's the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by the state.
Yes,
that's a SAVE Act, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly right. I think they do the polls among citizens. They say, yes, a person needs to be a citizen of the United States to be able to vote. Okay, but how do you know? You're going to take their word for it. You can actually register in California with a gym card. Okay.
Yep. And then you self-attest.
Yeah,
so
here I'm registered with Crunch, or I'm registered with Anytime Fitness, something like that. Okay, you may go ahead and vote, but it's just absolutely absurd. And we all know that, of course, there's all kinds of illegal aliens voting in California. There's an investigation. They refused to turn the voter rolls over to the federal government. The investigation, of course, they did. They find it completely dirty. A lot of different illegal aliens on the rolls, which could have made a difference in the election there in Los Angeles as well as California. That's just an outrage. It takes it was an example there. In order to get into the elementary school there, okay, you had to show your ID. But once you're inside the elementary school to vote there, you didn't have to have an ID. So you couldn't get in, but you had to have the ID to be able. You didn't have to have the ID to be able to vote. You could be who knows who with your gym card and your which is just an absolute joke. I mean, it's just very, very clear that there's cheating going on, and that's cheating going on also with with a lot of cases talking about daycare centers. They don't have any children in them, and also have other kinds
Learning centers.
Yeah, and the kind of violations taking place.
Yeah, learning centers, not learning, learning centers.
Yeah.
Jared, it has been a pleasure. And, you know, I did have a runner that was supposed to be running for you to show you your book and everything. And I got so tied up in talking, you know, my mouth starts and nothing else stops it.
Okay. Yes. People can go to tinyblundersbigdisasters.com. It's like Disneyland for history buffs. Okay, we have a lot of things that are fun to read. We have a portrait gallery with 27 personalities with a little bit of dirt on each one. Okay, and then we have the sizzle reel, and we have like the John Wayne reel, Instagram reel, and Elon Musk Instagram reel, and also a Watergate Instagram reel. That's there as well. And we have 4 free chapters and a fun quiz. So it's a fun place to visit. Of course, Father's Day is coming up in just 2 days.
Yeah. Well, God bless, Jared, and thank you for all the hard work. I got to get copies of your book. I need to read that because I
need one too.
But, you know, little tiny things like July 4th was the same day that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson passed away within hours of each other. Right. I think it was Jefferson who said, and how is Mr. Adams?
You know, 50 years later, the 50th anniversary, they didn't realize the other were going to die because information passed so slow. They were enemies, but then they became friends. Absolutely. They went out together.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And have a happy Father's Day. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And happy 4th of July.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right. Here's our final victim of the day. We were having so much fun with Jared. We didn't want to hang up.
Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah, he is fun. So we have with us Drew Thomas Allen, but I know him as Drew Allen from Publis. He's someone that sends us a lot of great guests along with AJ. Matter of fact, I started getting guests from AJ, I think maybe about 15 years ago. So I've been hanging on all this time. Oh man! But you've got yourself a great book out also called Clinton's Hoax, Obama Coup, the declassification story of the Trump-Russia Delusion. Boy, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast.
I'm willing to try.
Well, yeah, I mean, Clinton hoax, Obama coup says it all, you know, even leave out the subtitle and it says the whole picture, you know, I mean, it's amazing. You watch the Obama presidential library bullcrap that was just opening up, you know, the most racially divisive president opening up on Juneteenth, you know, which is supposed to celebrate emancipation of black people. All the stars show up for this thing. I mean, this $850 million, you know, Obama list, I think many people are calling it, which is a monstrosity. You know, the Chicagoans and people in Illinois, but, you know, mainly the city of Chicago, they're on the hook for $200 million of this in tax dollars. And it's just incredible to watch the hypocrisy of all these leftists and Barack Obama, who wants to build a false legacy to himself. I mean, his legacy is one of complete depravity and destruction of this country, destroying all norms. The Clinton hoax, Obama coup, which the book obviously is about, you know, the Trump-Russia collusion, but it begins long before Trump-Russia collusion. You know, it begins back with Benghazi and his attempt to cover up what happened there and to weaponize the intelligence communities to secure a positive outcome for himself during an election season. So, you know, as bad as Hillary Clinton was, Barack Obama's the worst. And he pretends to stand there above the fray every time. And meanwhile, he gives a speech at the Obama presidential, you know, library opening, and it's not really a library. All the records are digitized; they're not even there. But you know, he gives this speech, and of course, he always does this. He talks about how he's above the fray, and then he inserts these little daggers at Donald Trump, talking about you know, peaceful transfer of power and everything else. And he's such a demagogue and gaslighter because he, of course, is the first president that interrupted the transfer of power, because he was the one who ordered the coup as after Trump was elected president. You know, I mean, we can get in some other questions too, but I just want to remind people this. Hillary Clinton back in 2016, who had scandals just clouding her entire race, right? This girl who loved Saul Alinsky, the original community organizer and communist, dreams of being the first female president, loved power so much, but her own appetite for criminal activity including selling out the Department of State to the highest bidder while she was Secretary of State under Obama. And of course, her using an illegal private email server to send classified emails. She lied about it all, but the FBI was investigating all this, and this was threatening her chances of becoming, president. And so she and her campaign unleashed this monstrosity, which was a lie that, Donald Trump was colluding with Putin to, interfere and steal the election away from her. And this was all just a distraction because she was so corrupt and needed something so that people wouldn't focus on what she was doing. And it was bad enough that the FBI opened an investigation based on the Steele dossier and things like that, opposition research that was paid for by her own campaign into Trump during the election season, but he beat it. He beat it. And what they should have said was, all right, well, we gave it our best go. We went pretty far here and pretty hard, and it was unprecedented what we already did, but the people didn't go for it and they elected Trump. So let's regroup and let's plan how to defeat him in 4 years. That's not what happened. Barack Obama on December 9th, knowing all of this was false, having been briefed in August that this was a Clinton plan by his own CIA director, he decided to issue and order a intelligence community assessment. And so he, there are, 17 plus of these agencies that would weigh in usually. He cherry picked and used, I think 3 or 4. I forget the exact number. It's all in the book. But he once again corrupted the intelligence community to get an outcome. So they lied and said that, Putin wanted Trump to win, and therefore all the Trump-Russia collusion stuff is true. And he had already been elected. And so he did this as Trump was coming into office to hobble his presidency and to try and destroy him. And it was a soft coup. And this is who Obama is. So when I watch him open his presidential library, the Obama list, which looks like a middle finger to America, actually, if I'm being honest, a very ugly one, it just makes me sick to my stomach to watch these people walk around, not in handcuffs, pretending like they are the moral superiors to Donald Trump and MAGA.
No, this is what really gets me, though, because they actually confiscated land, the homes and properties of the neighborhoods around. They said, well, we did that because it had a lot of crime. So let's just level the whole neighborhood and just put this humongous, ugly, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm thinking about. I can't say on the air. It's like a male anatomy that doesn't stand up straight.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think that's an appropriate analogy too. People get it and they understand. I agree with you. I think that's a great point you're making because there's so many layers to the hypocrisy on display about what frauds the left and Democrats are and Obama is. They lecture us all the time about our original sin because we once had slavery in this country. Never mind the fact that no country has ever been perfect and never will be perfect. This guy is half black, but pretends like he's this is like, by the way, he's like the least black Democrat in Democrat history, Barack Obama. I just like to say that. He's half white. He was raised by white grandparents. He went to elite institutions. This guy, AJ Rice, who runs Publius, who grew up in Philadelphia, knows more about black people than Barack Obama, okay? So that's the truth about Barack Obama, too. And that's not any insult against black people. That's about what an imposter, Barack Obama is, how he'll wear whatever he needs to try and take advantage of people, et cetera. But yeah, they lecture us about, how we're irredeemable because of our history or stolen land, et cetera, colonialism. And yet here comes Barack Obama. And by the way, they got a 99-year lease given to them for $10, I think was the number. That's not an exaggeration. If it's not $10, it was $9, but I'm pretty sure it was $10 for 99 years. And so what do? They take this land, but it's for Barack Obama's, memorial to himself. Right. And so they go and they open up the ceremony and they say the Habaji, the Bapapi, all the different neighborhood tribe names, but they list them all like basically, thank you for,
Valerie Jarrett. And I always call Valerie Jarrett. She was the spider in the center of the web and the center of power of Barack Obama. And on this show years ago, we discussed how much she is a corrupt landlord on the people that she was renting to. She was a slumlord in Chicago. And she comes to be the powerhouse, the pinnacle point of Obama's administration. And she's still pulling the strings. So she mentions all these American Indian tribes that no longer have the land. But what about the people you just unhoused in the past?
Well, they broke all their promises to blacks and the community. Actually, as a matter of fact, there's a plumber or a plumbing company that I think is minority owned, but it doesn't really matter if it's minority owned or not. But they're owed $4 million from this project.
Wow.
And everyone's complaining about how they haven't been paid for this. And, this is the legacy of Barack Obama, actually, in a nutshell. And it's tragic. Obviously, gentrification is happening, which the left is very much against. But now gentrification is happening as a result of this. And, there were plenty of organizations that tried to fight this, and they couldn't win against Barack Obama and his cronies because the preservationists and everything like that. I mean, this whole project symbolizes the fraudulent nature of the left. I mean, if you could just pick one thing and extract, I mean, this is it, all of it. And it's amazing too, because all of these obviously celebrities, from Tom Hanks to Bono to Bruce Springsteen. I mean, there's a long list of A-list musicians and actors. They'll go out there and celebrate this ribbon cutting, which is an obviously political event. It's about Barack Obama and his legacy. But none of these people would ever go and sing to celebrate the 250th birthday of America in the Capitol, claiming that it's divisive simply because it's Trump that's president. And, this is why the American people have such disdain for these people who fly around on their private jets and behave this way and try and lecture us about anything. And it's really preposterous. And I mean, it's just the onion, and it's unlimited layers as we talk about that project and what it says about the left.
We can go on for days about the Obama machine and then the Clinton machine. And watching the Clintons sitting behind the Obamas at the ribbon cutting, or whatever you want to call it. And you mentioned minority, a gentleman that was a plumber, but that's all they focused on when they hired the contractors to build this ugly thing. They didn't use any main name brand or whatever you want to call them. They used all minority small companies. So it's easier for them to rip them off, get the work done at a cheaper price, and just don't pay the bill. And they, probably hundreds of contractors from minority communities.
Yeah. I mean, a project like this, I mean, you're talking, I mean, it's the scale of it's pretty incredible. I mean, you're getting close to, the price tag's just monstrous. And, I'm sure that the people that did get paid were associates of Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, and the people that have been put in charge of running this monstrosity. They have, $1 million salaries in some cases, I think, to run this library. And yet these, minority owned businesses and everything that already did the job, they're fighting to see a penny for their work. And, these are small businesses that are going under. And these people probably thought, hey, this is amazing. Obama's black. He's going to help out black people. Of course, we'll do it for a lower rate. We're proud to even be a part of a project like this. And then to find out that they haven't been paid, I hope they change their voter registration.
Yeah. Where are we with that?
I'm sorry.
No.
We're actually forced out of business. So that's something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hannah, I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering, there's probably going to be some lawsuits. I mean, people aren't getting paid for the work they did. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, I'm sure they're navigating it. I mean, it'll be a beautiful thing to behold if you get a bunch of civil rights organizations involved that, launch these different lawsuits against them and everything else. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is, it's supposed to be $200 to $300 million. Those were the early estimates. And then it ballooned to 3 times that, to nearly $900 million, which is crazy. Nearly $1 billion for this ugly thing. That lies to people about Barack Obama's, legacy. It's mismanaged. It's and I think, I mean, the biggest thing to me is just, the taxpayers on the hook for, $200 million of this too.
Yeah,
all to celebrate, Barack Hussein Obama, and they don't care. I mean, that's the thing. They'll take out the checkbook in a second whenever it's about glorifying themselves. I mean, this is, his Mount Rushmore to himself, and it's just the arrogance and everything else. It's horrible.
If it's managed anything like his presidency, then yeah, it's going to go downhill pretty quickly. I was curious if your book, if you touched on anything because I only operate in the immigration wheelhouse. But when you think of Obama, I mean, DACA comes to mind immediately, and I was just curious if you touched on that in your book.
No DACA stuff. I mean, this book is very specifically. I mean, it's broad. It's not so narrow, but it's really just about how we got to a place where Trump-Russia collusion could even happen, right? And so,
Gotcha.
you know, I get into things like I go back into his first year of his first term, and you had a shooting at Fort Hood, and it was a Muslim army captain, I believe was his rank, Nadal Hassan, and he'd been in touch. The FBI knew he'd been in communication for months and months and months with the leading English-speaking propagandist for Al-Qaeda, I believe Anwar al-Awlaki. And, you know, he went into the Soldier Preparedness Center with 2 pistols. He jumped on a table, yelled Allahu Akbar, and opened fire and killed, I think, 13 Americans and then injured, you know, many more. And then he deliberately covered it up as workplace violence. So what you were seeing with that early episode, early in his presidency, was his willingness to corrupt intelligence in order to bring about whatever political outcome. In this case, he wanted to hide the fact that there was, you know, he wanted to protect Islam from criticism. And so it was workplace violence instead of an act of, you know, terrorism, Islamic terrorism. And so you see that, him willing to do that. And then you go forward to Benghazi, obviously, and he orders the CIA, his office does, to scrub the talking points. I mean, to remind people just briefly, Benghazi, you know, you had a premeditated terrorist attack by an Al-Qaeda affiliated group that killed U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans. And everyone knew that it was a premeditated terrorist attack. It happened on 9/11. Okay. You know, and there had been warnings about what was going on in that region for a long time. And of course, that region was destabilized by Barack Obama's foreign policy. He spearheaded the NATO effort to take out Muammar Gaddafi. And so you created this arms bazaar in which terrorist organizations that didn't even previously occupy Libya were finally taking over Libya. So it was a horrible thing he did. And this was during an election season. He was less than 2 months away from the presidential election, and he was running against Mitt Romney. And so he told the CIA to scrub the talking points, and they did it 12 times, to send Susan Rice on the Sunday shows to say, oh, this was a spontaneous protest that was the result of an anti-Muhammad, anti-Islam video. And one of the things I found out in the book that was a bombshell, actually, is that Barack Obama didn't just outsource that lie. There's one instance where he actually told it himself. He went on the David Letterman show, and everyone in the administration already knew that this was not a spontaneous protest. But he went on Letterman and said that it was a spontaneous protest and said the lie himself. Well, when I went to look for the footage of this, I couldn't find it. There were records, obviously, from some congressional, investigations later that talked about this Letterman interview, but it was removed from the internet. You can find pieces from that 10, 12-minute interview joking about seeing each other naked and other stupid stuff, making fun of Romney, but they actually scrubbed it. And so I found a link to the video, and it had been posted at one point that had been embedded at places like Time Magazine, I think, and other outlets, and it's not available anymore. So the point is they self-censored to protect Barack Obama during an election season. And it's an amazing thing because Mitt Romney never brought up that video. You know, I mean, he botched a couple debates. He botched one in particular with Monica Crowley over semantics about, you know, you didn't call it an act of terrorism or whatever. But all Mitt Romney had to say was, hey, you were on the David Letterman show yourself and blamed this attack on a spontaneous protest over this anti-Islam video. Well, a day later, your own directors testified that it was not a spontaneous protest. So you lied to the American people. But Mitt Romney was weak, just like John McCain ended up being weak, and they didn't have the balls, if you will, to actually to win. So they were squishes. Yeah. So, but anyway, that was a revelation. But there's a ton in this book. I mean, it's just people have to understand what happened to this country because we haven't recovered. It's actually gotten worse since Trump-Russia collusion because nobody was held accountable. So 2020, we have stolen election, okay, and you can, you know. Whether you think it was space lasers that came down from Mars and did it, or the ballots themselves, right? And the way we changed our election system, we know that they cheated, all right? And so then you go to 2024, 4 years later, there's no accountability for 2020 stolen elections. So now you've got these multiple scandals piling up, and now you've got unprecedented lawfare against Donald Trump. So it's this unraveling of our entire country because of the left and what they've gotten away with. And there's this combination, I think, of, desperation to cover up their sins and crimes in the past because there's so many bodies buried. And at the same time, there hasn't been accountability. So they think they can continue to proceed this way in perpetuity.
Well, Drew, I got something here because being a native New Yorker, even though I fled to the South, I often follow what's going on up there. And at that election, there was a tractor trailer that left Babylon, New York. And why do you think of Babylon? Because Babylon, Brentwood, that whole area was taken over by Mississippi. I, as a child, lived in Brentwood. And now just trying to picture it at that point, I can't. I just remember the beautiful things I remember as a kid, where I could walk 2 miles down the street to go to church as a little kid and no one bothered us. That doesn't happen now out there. But this tractor trailer left, and it was full of ballots, completed ballots from Babylon, New York, on its way down to Atlanta, Georgia. He stopped when he got into Georgia, I guess the rest stop or whatever, but the trailer is missing off his tractor trailer. The trailer, all the votes, and they're saying something like there was probably maybe 250,000 or more votes in that tractor trailer, easily. And somehow there's a lot of these from out of nowhere, something gets processed through Georgia's election system. And you had people that actually got arrested and an investigation going on about the fraud in Georgia. So we're looking at a lot of different things here that are going now with our elections. And this is very scary because now California, like you said, like Jared said, a woman registered her dog to vote. So
California, we just had the primaries, and Spencer Pratt somehow miraculously lost his lead and isn't even going to be on the ballot for the general election.
Isn't it taking them a full 30 days to count them? So we got until the 5th of next month.
Yeah, they've got, I think 30 days to canvass. And I mean, the only thing it's hard to talk about in terms of stolen elections in a place like California is that it's legalized stealing. So look, I mean, we always hear this claim from the left in particular that's, well, once you point out that there is some voter fraud, they're like, well, it's never enough, to actually alter elections. It's just a few things. And the first thing is, well, we should want no fraud, period. So why wouldn't you create laws that prevent any fraud? If you just had a few murders every year, you wouldn't say, hey, why do we need to make, murder illegal? Well, because we don't have that many murders, right? So we don't even need that law anymore, right? So the thing is, so we have motor voter, right? So illegals certainly do get ballots because it's a Scouts honor system. So when you go and get your driver's license, you just check a box saying yes or no, or you
self-attest.
Yeah, you self-attest. And then we have ballot harvesting. So third parties, they don't have to be family members, can go and collect the ballots. We also have curing of ballots. So this is really imperative. So Democrats who are running the voting machine out here in system effectively, especially in these close races that are, congressional races, et cetera, when you're talking about 200, 300 votes, curing the ballots, if they're missing a signature or something's wrong with it, and you see they voted for the Democrat candidate, well, they can then contact that person and go and have them fix the ballot so it can then be counted. So, it's funny in Georgia, they tried to put Trump in prison over RICO charges because he had a conversation with Raffensperger saying, find me 10,000, whatever, almost 11,000 votes. And there's nothing illegal about what he was talking about, but it's ironic because that's exactly what the ballot harvesting and ballot curing is designed to do. It's about finding the votes that you need in California. So again, it's just crazy, blatant hypocrisy. But if you don't require voter ID to actually vote, and by the way, a friend of mine went and voted and he just thought he'd test it out. He couldn't believe it. So he just showed up to a polling place without an ID and asked to vote, and he was able to vote.
Yeah.
So, it's illegal, if you're not a U.S. citizen to vote, but if you're not verifying it, then what good does it do? So it'd be like this. So how you don't know how many illegals are voting. You don't know how many illegal votes are taking place because if you did this with, for example, underage drinking, right? So yeah, it's illegal. You have to be 21 and over to buy alcohol. Well, if you have that law in place, but then you pass another law that says you are not allowed to ask for ID when someone buys alcohol, Well, how are you going to know how many underage kids are buying liquor? You won't unless there's a one or two examples or cases where they happen to get caught somehow or turn themselves in. So that's the big, that's the big scam.
California is particularly egregious. They're one of the 8 states that have 3 laws that I think allows and kind of invites illegal aliens to vote in their elections. It's, they give driver's license to illegal aliens. They have motor voter, which you just mentioned, and then they also have automatic voter registration. And so they go in there, you get your license, you're an illegal alien. They ask you if you're a citizen, you self-attest. There's no checks and balances, and then they also have universal mail-in voting. And so once you get home, a couple months later, you'll get that ballot in the mail if it's an election cycle, and there you have it. And so they're particularly egregious. We actually at FAIR, we did a report earlier this year, a few months ago, that I led on voter integrity, and it was a hard hitter. So if anybody listening wants to go check that out at fairus.org, give it a look, give it a whirl, share it with your friends, because it's a real issue, and it's exacerbating these conditions that already exist, in our elections. But the states, they have more power than they think, and we can't only rely on their laws getting passed. California is before I start rambling about how horrible California is, the other states can look at California as a blueprint of what not to do, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, we're down to our last few minutes here. I can't believe this has gone so fast. But Drew, you also have your own podcast called The Millennial Minister of Truth. And just as we're speaking here, you can understand why you're called that. You're phenomenal with your show. You also are a columnist a columnist at the Daily Show. And your podcast is called The Drew Allen Show, which people can find up on Substack. So you have your fingers in a lot of pots, as well as working for the publicist with AJ. And you have the youth and vitality that I want to see with our other youth. We have double standards from the Democrats to everyone else. Plattner is running, and he is a Nazi. I'm sorry, there's nothing else in his profession. And yet Trump withdrew his endorsement on a minister that was running because he had exchanged some inappropriate text messages. He didn't have an affair with the person. He didn't do anything illegal, and he wasn't wearing a Nazi costume. But yet he lost his chance to run for office. And Plattner looks like he might win the seat against Susan Collins. The double standard that we're seeing is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Democrats are basically just, they find the floor and then they keep digging. And it's almost like they're daring their voters not to support these people. It's just, to show how brain dead their voters are. They can run anybody, no matter how monstrous, right? They can call me and Trump and you a Nazi for a decade. And then they can actually then put up an actual Nazi to run. And they'll say, look, our voters are so stupid and they hate Trump so much that they will vote for a Nazi now. Because
like
the Nazi
South Park episode.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
yeah, Drew, where can we find your book?
Amazon. You can find it anywhere books are sold, really. But Amazon's a great place. It's just unfortunately, whether people like it or not, it's a great place for visibility and stuff. So I prefer Amazon.
No, I don't blame you.
Well, good luck on the book, and you and I will be talking in the near future as I plan more episodes here. Between you and Kimberly and AJ, you guys do a fantastic job, and they have publicist has the A list of people if you are running a podcast or a regular show. So I say, look up these guys because, you sent me, Peter Navarro, Judge Seguin. There's a lot of fantastic people that you guys represent. And you are amazing too. You're full of so much energy. You're making me tired.
Yeah, it's running circles around me.
Well, it's Juneteenth. I'm really excited about Juneteenth. That's all.
Yeah, there we go.
And Pride Month.
There we have it.
And I like the way Newsmax did last night. They had walking around a black neighborhood asking what Juneteenth is about. I think only one person out of those 25 or so they interviewed knew what it was all about. But good luck, Drew, and God bless you for all the hard work you do. And we'll be talking to you real soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again.
All right. What an amazing young man. Amazing. I wish
great.
they made more of them. But that's all we got for today. And I know we got people lined up for next week. So as I try to turn my phone off, I want to turn my phone back on to see who we got lined up for next week. And come on, podcast. Oh, our former chair of the South Carolina GOP now runs a faith-based, I guess you would call it a ministry, Chad Connolly.
Okay,
So
that'll be good.
So he'll be joining us. If nothing else happens, he's always flying somewhere last minute to go somewhere. So Hannah, thank you and have a blessed weekend.
You too.
Have a happy Father's Day with your parents and telling people to check you out at fairus.org.
And at Immigration HD on Twitter. Follow me.
Until then, we say good night and God bless.